Ready. Play.
I mean, I did mention the friends of the show, right?
Yes, you
And
did. You
Jaime
did.
Faria is also a friend of the show. So yeah, and we also have another member of the Talking Tennis team, actually a very important member, talking to us about Jaime Faria, I guess.
Yeah, I'm disrupting and interrupting just for a few minutes, and then I'll go back in my cave. But yeah, where do you want to start, Damien? Should we start with Novak or should we start with Jaime?
I don't know, whatever you want. You simply are so excited to talk about this match that I think you should lead the way.
It's because it's probably the one I watched the most in terms of probably percentage from the day. Probably about 80%. I kind of stopped watching at the time when it, was becoming a bit of a foregone conclusion in the fourth set, which, by the way, just those words, guys, alone is enough to tell you that this was a much closer match than we initially anticipated. The fact that it wasn't until the fourth set before we sort of felt that there was a conclusion. Let's start at the beginning. Djokovic actually has faced a break point pretty early on, I think maybe in his first service game. And it was one of those that, probably Jaime had to take. I don't remember him having a huge chance on that particular break point. But the set was 6-1, but it didn't quite feel like a 6-1. It felt a little bit closer than that. And Jaime, did himself great. But losing that first set, you did think, okay, the second set, whatever, especially when he went down an early break at the beginning of the second set. That was kind of it. I remember we had a live watch along at the time, and there were people in the live chat, saying shouldn't be a friend of the show anymore. I was more worried when he goes 5-2 up in the second set that maybe he'll get an elevated status and he won't want to talk to us anymore. Well, I can tell you that he has even spoken to, well, actually, he responded to an Instagram tag. So for me, that's good enough anyway. And he was very polite as always. But that second set, that's what it was all about, really, for Jaime. I mean, Djokovic said afterwards he was playing lights out. Yes, he was. He was definitely more aggressive on the second serve, which is also something Djokovic referenced. And it was also part of the reason why he double faulted quite a few times in some pretty important moments. Certainly, at least one of the breaks I think that he lost in the match was due to double faulting twice on his serve. But that's what he had to do. I think he got his tactics spot on. Novak, by the way, was still returning those, amazing second serves that were landing in with interest. And I was thinking to myself, this is probably the biggest difference in what was happening that particular night. I was thinking Jaime's, pretty much first serves are not landing on the baseline so often on the Challenger Tour. The rest of it, by the way, the changes of direction, Damien, that he was able to pull off. And it was only some miraculous defense from Novak that, made that second set competitive, actually, because Jaime was the better player, from certainly 2-love onwards. He actually was serving for that second set. And when he didn't close that out, you thought, oh, well, you've made this, you've had a good day. But the tiebreak, he was phenomenal, including finishing it off with a lovely drop shot that showed a lot more composure than I've saw of him earlier on this year. After I think he won one match in Estoril, I saw him eating some ice cream or something, and it was sort of, you would never imagine, 8-9 months later, this guy would be sharing Rod Laver Arena in the second round at the Australian Open with Novak Djokovic and pushing him as much as he did. The third set, what I will say is, now I want to come on to Novak. I think, we can probably guess kind of where Jaime was at. I think there's more reason for concern this year than there has been any other year. We had those years, 21, 22, 23. It was dropping sets early on, even dropping 2 sets to Jannik Sinner, sort of pre-puke, of course, Jannik Sinner. And we were thinking, yeah, as soon as he broke in that third set, he was coming back. And you just always there was an air of inevitability about him. I don't have that anymore because it's been 13 months now, and you can probably count on one hand the number of, Novak Djokovic-esque performances. Obviously, one of those, arguably in the most important match of his year against Carlos Alcaraz. So I think there is reason for concern. I think playing like this, I think he loses to Yili Lehecka and maybe even Thomas Mahac. And, you look at some of those defeats he's had in the last 13 months. It's not just Sinner and Alcaraz. He's losing to Luca Nardi, Casper Ruud, the aforementioned Mahac as well, Alex de Minaur. These are not players that he was regularly losing to 2 or 3 years ago. And yeah, I've got a poll on in the chat. I just don't see how you can predict him to win the title right now. And 29% last time I checked did tip him to win the title. It was just a simple yes or no question. I don't know how you feel, Fergus, about Novak's chances.
I think it's tough. I think because this year's obviously a bit different. I mean, last year, same sort of team surrounding him, and he did, yeah, as you say, he dropped sets early on to Prismic first round. He dropped, and then Prismic went a break up in the third, and everyone was kind of like, well, is Djokovic actually going to go out first round of a slam? Like, what's going on? And then dropped sets to Popperin, and obviously then got kind of taken to the cleaners by Sinner in the semi-finals. But I think because Murray's here and there's this aura of Murray and Djokovic working together, I think everyone's kind of jumped on the bandwagon that Djokovic is going to at least make the final or semi-final, make a deep run. But maybe he doesn't have the quality. But, I just can't help but feel he'll make the semis just because it's Novak and he has the desire still.
But Fergus, there is a small guy who might.
Yeah, there's a Carlos Alcaraz in that quarter of the draw.
Yeah.
I do think Alcaraz would beat Alcaraz plainly because maybe this year's different, but Alcaraz hasn't had that much success down under before in his career. Mm-hmm. In terms of everywhere else, all the other three slams. And obviously Djokovic is a 10-time winner here. I do think it'll be close, but I think it could be that they play in the quarterfinals and Alcaraz wins 3-4-1. But, just at the moment, I think that Djokovic might pip him.
That change of direction comment I made, Damien, did that stand out for you? Is that something you've noticed or did it surprise you? That was the big thing for me in that end of the second set period, especially when he was playing so well, that it was just the ability to just go down the line and Novak just get his racket on it. And then the composure to still win the point from that moment onwards was there. There was a smash, I think, at the beginning of the third set. And I don't think it came in the game when he was broken, but I think it was, when he had a sniff on the Novak serve very, very early in the third set. And yeah, he makes that smash. Maybe he gets the break. Maybe we're talking about, I still think we're talking about a loss, but it could be a slightly different nature. But yeah, that change of direction was something that, if you haven't noticed it before on a hard court, at least, is something I suggest you keep an eye on.
Yeah, I don't know how change of direction, but definitely, whenever he was trying to pull that trigger, it was always right. Like it was always almost always the at the perfect moment and basically a tight attempt. Yeah. And that sort of level from Faria in terms of both just being able to hit as deep, as hard and consistently like this, and then at the same time, just choose the right ball to attack wisely. Like we haven't seen that. This is not the same player that was almost losing to Vadim Ursu when we were watching it in Porto, right? You mentioned Estoril. He had a loss to David Sorda Sanchez there, I think, in the opening round of that event.
Who did he beat in the final round of qualifying there? Because that was sort of when I noticed him.
Klein.
Okay.
Klein. That was a super windy day when it was impossible to play any attacking shot really. But then I think I have a small anecdote because I was doing this live stream, not on the Talking Tennis feed, but about the qualifying nonetheless. And basically I was just talking about the 9th section of the draw and how it's so random, basically anybody can advance there. And
that was on Talking Tennis, or at least you repeated it on Talking Tennis anyway.
I repeated it, but there's an anecdote there on it from another stream where I basically posed this question to people in the chat. Just give me one name that won't be able to make out of this. Give me one name who can't do it. And basically 3 people said Faria. Right away.
Yeah.
And I just said, nah, you guys are crazy. I mean, you just don't understand how good he can be on hardcourt with the serve. But obviously, this just gets funnier and funnier, with every single match. And I keep bringing it up because, it turns out that they were just dead wrong. And also Faria actually managed to win a main draw match, actually managed to get to play Novak and show something that I don't think we've ever seen before. Of course, when something like this happens, people tend to kind of ask me, oh yeah, this guy is really good, right? I mean, you probably have seen 10 matches like this from him. And I just have to say, no, he literally has never played like this, at least in my knowledge.
I might be getting carried away, and I'm sure I'll get slated for this, but I think when both players played their best tennis today for 6, 7, because Djokovic's level didn't drop. It just stayed at 5 out of 10, I would suggest, certainly by his high standards. And it didn't drop, it didn't go up, it didn't go down. And when they both were playing at their best today, Jaime Faria was better. The problem was that was for 6 games. And then when Faria couldn't keep that up, of course, and lights out is, I think it's a bit of an exaggeration from Novak, but he did play very well. And fingers crossed that he has a good rest of the year. Any final comment from you, Damien, on Novak before you two guys assume control once more?
Well, I'm usually the guy who says that, well, Novak is probably not winning too much from here. And, well, now you're going for it, though.
Yeah.
I can't fully disagree. I think that either one of Mahac or Lehechka, like one of them will have a good chance at beating him. Like there's no way he gets through this like unscarred. And if he has to play Alcaraz, Zverev, and Sinner to win the title, like sorry. I still feel like, my opinion about this at the start of the season was that he can still win a best of 5 tournament, like he can still win a major if he doesn't play Alcaraz or Sinner. So that's kind of stays, but like his draw here is looking horrible from here. Mahac, Lehechka, Alcaraz, Zverev, Sinner. Let's just imagine that. Like there's just absolutely no way for me. But you are kind of going even further.
Well, no, I think
funny
it's
not to be the guy who's down on Djokovic anymore, but be the guy in the middle, of this stream.
He could lose to Mahac at the Australian Open. He could lose to Jiri Lehecka at the Australian Open. I would not have said that a year ago, 2 years ago. I just wouldn't. I could say, maybe Mahac and Lehecka can make it competitive. But the 2023 Lehecka, don't forget, got to the quarterfinals. Novak won the title. And that was a different Novak. I think you're right. That draw is just brutal from now on. And I think there's too many tests for him to take the title. Anyway, I'm going to go back and you two can take it away.
And I think we've said it many times as well what Jake is saying, that as long as he feels competitive against Sinner and Alcaraz, as long as he feels himself that he can be competitive against them, he'll probably keep playing. But that's not really a given. And also there's a huge break between the Australian Open and the French Open, which honestly at this stage of his career, it also might actually matter a great deal. I mean, Wimbledon, of course, is also another good chance for him potentially to claim a slam, but just considering that, 5 or 6 months right now at where he is right now, it's massive. It can really change everything in terms of the potential decline.
I think that also, if you think about Wimbledon being his biggest chance to win a slam, I think Alcaraz is still going to be a huge problem when you get to that part. I mean, Alcaraz is strange or special in the way that he's so dominant in the Channel Slam that on both clay and grass, he plays his best tennis, which I just don't think is gonna drop even if Novak plays, as you guys are saying, lights out for an entire tournament. I don't think on grass, I don't think it works against Alcaraz.
Sinner, honestly, too. I know that he still hasn't won Wimbledon, but 23 is still before that peak version. He still goes to the semis, meets Novak. 24, he loses to Medvedev in 5. Obviously, some physical issues in there, but 22, he still beat Carlos at Wimbledon. Both of them will be very dangerous contenders for that slam, and honestly, for any slam this year.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.